It's great to introduce St Abbs. I'll give a quick preamble, set the scene on the partnership, and then pass immediately to Kevin Scott, who's a station director at St Abbs. So what is this new strategic partnership all about? What I want to do is actually set the scene a little bit from the university perspective by just going back a little over a year, pre-pandemic. Here we all are at ECCI, where we had a meeting gathering as many people as we could across the university to think about our marine science and ocean-related activities, particularly with an eye on this, the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. We actually spent a very active day together thinking about all our activities and how they map onto the societal goals of that decade. Now, I'm not going to go through all of that today, but we have actually a lot of materials written up, compiled, that have guided our thinking on this. And it was really actually very fascinating to see that we cover almost the entire territory of that huge United Nations level activity. And that launched in 2021. And we are now a partner of the UN Decade. So if you check the website, University of Edinburgh is a collaborating partner in the UN Decade. And these are the areas that we cover off institutionally that relate to oceans at Edinburgh. So in no particular order, we have ocean observation and modeling. We have a lot of physical oceanographic expertise in university, a lot of glaciology and ice edge interaction expertise. Much of this is in the School of Geosciences, but not exclusively. A lot of engineering expertise is highly relevant here. We lead large aspects of ocean drilling. The university have done for many, many years through work of people like Dick Groon and others. So paleoceanography and climate records research has always been important, and understanding the past history of the ocean and of ocean ecosystems to inform what we understand of present day rapid change, which is where the work of my group, Marine Ecology in a Changing Ocean, fits in. We tend to work on more present day and future projection scenarios. We also look at food security and aquaculture implications, clearly very relevant to the audience today at Roslin. It's great to have the chance to present some of this to you today, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that area grow and expand through the St Abbs partnership in particular. We have expertise on the geo side in coastal dynamics and geomorphology, looking to actually enhance some of those areas in new projects at the moment. Then we have the engineering expertise, high-level expertise in assessment of renewable energy devices, best practices, technologies associated with that. Incredible work coming out of engineering, for instance, assessing using remote sensing approaches to calibrate salinity from satellite observations. There are so many areas within the university that I think we can be very proud of in the ocean space. And it's not all about the science, it's about how that feeds through to people, policies, laws, governance. The law school have always had high-end specialist expertise in the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and that's highly relevant at the moment, as is the social ecological nexus of policies and working with communities to make this real and to really implement the best science in sustainable development context. And then cross-cutting everything, the university's great strengths in informatics, modeling, systems analysis, and remote sensing. So that's just a really quick preamble to set the scene. We are an oceans active university, but it's not always often perceived that way externally. That we picked up in our workshop. A lot of people make that point, and I think we should change that, to be frank. And one of the ways that we're going about that is forming new partnerships, developing new collaborations. So the St Abbs partnership, it's the kind of thing I really love because it's practical, it's real things happening with real people, real experiments in a very important place. So St Abbs, it's a most extraordinary natural environment, and we have an entire system there from the people within the St Abbs community, the creelers, the seabird colonies, through of course to the wonderful local environment, which has been a statutory nature reserve for very many years, a voluntary marine reserve. And there are some really important ecosystems there. Now, Kevin will talk more about the research that's ongoing. I'm not going to do that today. Kevin will take that on and he'll describe the facility to you in much more detail. But St Abbs isn't only important for the research we can do, it's important for our students, it's important for us engaging in the wider community. Here's a picture of a BioBlitz that Kevin's involved in with Chris Packham. Lots of opportunities for things like this and for the public engagement side of our work to really kind of take flight and develop with St Abbs. So now just give me a couple of minutes to tell you what this partnership's based upon, because it's now developed, signed, sealed and delivered. And it's a collaboration that runs to quite a lot of pages, as these agreements always do. But basically, there's only two things that we want to do. We want to conduct research, conservation and/or educational activities at the St Abbs facility, both on its own behalf and for us as the university and with the marine station. So we want to see our own work there, we want to see the St Abbs work there, and then over the years bring these two things together. To make this happen, we need projects, we need ideas, we need the best research going on, the best student projects going on, the best outreach activities, and so forth. So we want to attract third parties. This isn't just Edinburgh and St Abbs working together. We want to be the catalyst to bring third parties in. It might include commercial partners in research activities to use the facility, but it's all going to be around research conservation and the educational purposes that underpin the St Abbs station. I'm sure Kevin will talk in more detail about the creation of the marine station. It's from a philanthropic founder, Stephen Nesbitt, and we're very much in line with Stephen's vision for the future development of the centre. Now, the schools that are involved in this are geosciences, where I'm based, the School of Biological Sciences, and the vet school, particularly through the Roslin Institute. And here's a nice screen grab, a very COVID-era screen grab of the signing ceremony. It's a shame, of course, we couldn't do it in person, but we actually had an extremely good discussion with Peter Matheson, with Dave Robertson, Simon Kelly, who's the recently left head of geosciences. He's moved to Leeds, but Simon was heavily involved in brokering these agreements. And actually, Peter spent a long time talking to Stephen Nesbitt about the overarching vision of the centre, a good hour discussion, followed up, he went the next day to visit St Abbs and he went for a walkabout. So Peter's really interested in this development and very supportive of it. And Dave has been fantastic to work with. So we're in a good place. Let me tell you a bit about how it works, and then I'll be passing quickly on to Kevin so you can see what's actually going on. It's a 5-year collaboration that we've signed. And there's real money changing hands. So the university is investing £660,000 over a 5-year period. The monies step up over time as our engagement grows with the centre. And to manage this process, we've established a joint working group. I'm chairing that group, and the others on the team are Sinead Collins in biology, Sed Henniger, who's a colleague of mine in geosciences, Ross Houston and Tim Bean in Roslin. And then on the St Abbs side, we have representatives of the foundation and the charity that's endowed the station. That's Stephen Nesbitt, who founded the operation, his sons, Joel and Matthew Nesbitt, and Kevin Scott as the station manager. So we form a working group. We meet every 4 weeks as best we can. In fact, it has been every 4 weeks for the first 6 months to establish our plans and our policies to make to kind of enact the vision of this collaboration agreement. And we've agreed these initial focal areas. Now, these aren't set in stone. These will change, these will evolve as research continually changes, adapts, and evolves itself. But the areas that we're interested in, and Kevin will pick up on this, I'm sure, in his slides, the station was built entirely with non-ferrous materials. It's particularly perfect, therefore, to look at the effects of electromagnetic fields on marine organisms. So as we roll out renewable energy across the North Sea and elsewhere, we're going to see a huge step change in the importance of understanding electromagnetic fields from the cables that transmit that power back to shore. This station is perfect for that research, and Kevin's developed a real expertise in that area. So that's one major focal area that we're working on. We also have a whole suite of studies now and developing, looking at multiple stressors and how they affect marine organisms. Here we're thinking of things like ocean warming, acidification and deoxygenation. We're very interested in supporting work on new aquaculture approaches, including restoration aquaculture. I should mention that as well as the Decade of Ocean Science, the UN's just launched a decade of ecosystem restoration. And again, we need to be ready for that. Proposals are going in with that very much in mind at the moment. We want to see that grow. And then finally, the overarching need to raise awareness, increase opportunities, and get this thing going and really drive it forward. Now, to facilitate that, what we're doing at the moment in the working group is coming up with a pilot project scheme. Now, the vision here, and we've got to work out all of the details, but the vision will be to get people into the centre effectively at very low cost or even no cost, so that you can generate data towards proposals. So we'll have a scheme that will allow people to bid in and get space to get that all-important pilot data. So as I say, we've got to work out all of the details. We're working out all of the costing implications of the centre and how we bring that into FEC grants, charitable applications, and so forth. That work's nearly done. It's being led by Richard Carr in Geosciences, but it's nearly complete. Once that's there, we can bring this pilot scheme together, and we'd love to hear from you. If you're interested, please be in touch with me. My email address, murray.roberts@ed.ac.uk. Just drop me a line and let's get things going. So I'd like to leave it there, please, and I will pass the screen over to Kevin. And Kevin is the station director, recently completed a PhD, particularly focused on electromagnetic field effects on marine organisms. And I'll leave it now with Kevin to run you through the station and the facilities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Murray. Yeah, so as Murray said, I'm the manager of St Abbs Marine Station. I've been there now for coming up 8 years, actually. So pretty much since the inception. I think because you are going to be unable to visit the station for the foreseeable future due to the pandemic, the best thing that I can do is show you a shortened version of a promotional video that we had shot a couple of years ago that will take you through the facility, show you some of the staff. This was a bit of a last minute addition, so I may have to shoot through the rest of the slides, but I think that would be a good starting point for this. So.
Our coastal seas and oceans are facing unprecedented environmental change. Rising sea temperatures, new pollutants, and fishing are having widespread effects. St Abbs Marine Station is a state-of-the-art independent marine research facility dedicated to delivering world-class research to tackle local, regional and global marine issues, with particular focus on conservation and training for marine scientists.
What makes St Abbs particularly special is it's where the cold currents from the north and the warm currents from the south meet, which results in clear oceans, as well as us having species that are typically found in warmer and colder climates.
50 miles southeast of Edinburgh, St Abbs is a historic fishing village on the Berwickshire coast and is also home to several well-established fishing families.
If you take a look around, it's a beautiful place. It's a pretty good office. I've worked alongside the marine station for a couple of years. To purchase crabs, lobsters for research. It's quite interesting to understand some of the science behind the fishing as well. The sea is very important for us. It's worth looking after.
St Abbs Marine Station is a registered Scottish charity built in 2014. The station is fully equipped to carry out all aspects of marine research. Our current research focuses on the effects of marine stressors and on sustainable management.
So one of the unique things about the station is our close proximity to the ocean, and that means we can run a complete flow-through system. So we pump 20,000 litres of water an hour through the station, and these pumps run continuously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
We have upwards of 100 tanks in the facility, and each one's extremely versatile. We can control temperature, we can change the water chemistry, and we can change the light conditions. This is our mesocosm. It's a 100,000 litre tank, 4 metres deep, and it runs continuously on flow-through seawater. What this does is it perfectly bridges the gap between experimental tanks and running experiments in the sea. So this is a Helmholtz coil. What this does is it lets us create a uniform electromagnetic field at variable strengths, and it lets us create the magnetic field that's predicted to be around the cables of offshore wind farms. Most of the species that we work with are commercially important decapods. They're the species that are really likely to encounter these cables, so we focus our work on crab and lobster.
The biggest thing for this facility is field access. And I think for a marine biologist, it doesn't get any better. You take one step out the back door and there you are, right in the ocean.
These coastal waters are part of the oldest voluntary marine reserve in the UK and attract tens of thousands of visitors every year. The St Abbs Visitor Centre is a partner facility providing a demonstrable community connection and a measurable public impact of marine research projects.
So there we go. As you can see, the pandemic has not been kind to me, but nonetheless. So as mentioned in the video, we're situated on the southeast coast of Scotland. And as Murray touched on, we are actually in one of the oldest voluntary marine reserves in the UK. It was set up in 1984 by David Bellamy, but it's also part of a larger legally protected site, the Berwickshire and North Northumberland European Marine Site. A brief bit of overview. So the Marine Station has been a member of MASS, the Marine Alliance and Science for Technology for Scotland, for I think 2 or 3 years now, if not a little longer. We are a registered shellfish and finfish aquaculture facility, and we are registered to hold quite a wide range of species. We're also a coastal monitoring site for Marine Scotland. So we send monthly water samples from the local area, and it's tested for salinity, nitrates, and basic water chemistry. We've recently became a Home Office establishment license holder, and I'll touch on that a bit more when I get to the research. As Murray mentioned, we've recently signed a 5-year partnership with University of Edinburgh. And we are an approved training facility for 4 EU higher education organisations. We've got a long-established volunteer and internship programme where we've had upwards of 350 individuals over the last 6 years. And they're an amazing help for the work that we do. It's very hard to get practical experience, and we're extremely proud of the fact that we can offer that. So briefly following on from the video, the Marine Station, one of the big things, it has a clear roof. So all the animals that you have this natural photo period. And because we use this raw flow through seawater, it's as close to natural as you can get for holding the animals. Now you can see the beams throughout the facility. As Murray mentioned, it's built almost entirely from glass reinforced plastic, which means that we can create electromagnetic fields with really minimal interference. And we're one of a handful of institutes in the world that has taken that approach. We have a 275 square meter aquarium. We have a temperature controlled room. And we also have small office and laboratory space for any work that requires that. And it touched on in the video the 100,000 litre mesocosm. So it's an exceptional tank when it's clean, but it's really, really unique. It's one of these tanks that does bridge the gap perfectly. It lets you scale up your experiments. And the direct access to the sea. We are literally right on the edge of the North Sea. So you don't get any closer than that. And because we have built up links with local dive charters, you know, we can go on a minute's notice if we need to go out to collect animals or equipment. As Murray also mentioned, the research framework, it's highly adaptable. We will change over time. But we've kept it quite broad over the years leading up to now. You know, we've been involved in monitoring ecosystem health, conservation, and sustainable management. And some more specifics that fall into these. We've done some work in climate change. We do a lot of work on the impacts of renewable energy, microplastics, chemical pollution. But we also go to the other end of the scale where we do work on tourism, ecotourism, habitat restoration. And because we have really strong links with local fishermen, we've made sure that one of the core aspects of our research has been sustainable inshore fisheries. This is just a brief pile of people that we have worked with over the years. Quite a broad remit, a good international set of collaborators. So a bit about my research. I mean, I'm involved in a vast array of different projects, but as you can see, electromagnetic fields from submarine power cables is the star of my show. We've done work on crabs and lobsters previously, and basically what we've been able to find is that there is impacts, and that in itself is a great first step, because this is an area where the research is really, really lacking. Now, I've recently managed to secure a project for the Marine Station. It's part of a larger 5-year project with a Dutch consortium called Elasmopower. And effectively what we'll be doing is we will be having a look at the interactions between elasmobranchs, so spotted cat sharks, thornback rays, and blonde rays. We'll be looking at their interactions with submarine power cables around wind farms. So another aspect of the research that I do a lot of work with fisheries, which I'll touch on when I get to one of my colleagues. And also over the last couple of years, I've been interested in working with seafood suppliers and processing plants to develop bioplastics and eco-friendly materials that we can hope will replace those normal plastics in the supply chain. The station supervisor, Petra Hashani, so she also works on offshore renewable energy, but she's taken a different approach. She focuses on the impacts on bacteria. So she has a look at biofilms, biofouling, and she has a look at the impacts of EMF on marine pathogens. So this is part of her PhD, which is in collaboration with Hungary. Another one of my colleagues, Erica Chapman, she's currently on maternity leave. Her work is focused on working as part of the DEEP project. It's a collaboration with Glenmorangie Whisky and Heriot-Watt University. And this is having a look at oyster restoration in the Dornoch Firth. Blair Easton. So this is the project that I'm also involved in as well. Because we have these links with the fishermen, we're really keen on building on this and making it a focal point. So we've done a lot of work today where we're assessing the fishing activity within the voluntary marine reserve. That we've done this by going aboard the fishermen's boats, recording data. We've also put cameras around creels, and we're beginning to expand upon this to start having a look at sizes at maturity across the border, because we're situated right at the border and there's 2 different fishing laws on either side. And we're also having a look at the personalities and the social interactions of these animals that ultimately lead to the catch. Adam Houghton, so he is the station technician. He's responsible for keeping everything running, but he's also involved in his own research. He does a lot of work with DR Collin, which is a local seafood exporter and processor, and he's involved in lobster rearing. They've started up a lobster rearing program, and that's one of the focal points that we are helping out. We have a lot of experience of rearing different crustaceans, so this is a great partnership with a local stakeholder. Our 2 newest members of staff, Althea Piper and Constantine Rochas, they're working on electromagnetic fields again, surprise, surprise. They have their own project with funding through Edinburgh University and through MASTS, and they're having a look at coastal species. We have a new wind farm, which is appearing in the Firth of Forth, and the export cables will be coming ashore around Torness, which is about 16 kilometres away from our facility. And it comes right through the coastline. So this is going to be having a look at coastal crustaceans, echinoderms and gastropods, and determining the impacts that it may have. If we move over to Kelsey Barnhill, so she is part of Edinburgh University, the School of Geosciences, and she has been conducting work at the Marine Station for a few months now. And she is working on the cold water coral, Lophelia pertusa. Now, the Marine Station is well set up to look after these animals. We have these light conditions, but we also have the ability to control the light, control the temperature. So she's been doing that. The corals originally came from Sweden, and we have been able to keep them alive, fingers crossed. And this experiment has been going along, so it's going to go for a year. And basically, it's having a look at the impacts of ocean acidification, deoxygenation, and increased temperature on live and dead Lophelia. And this will be assessed by CT scans. Another project that was done, highlighting the link between St Abbs and the University of Edinburgh, was Johan Vad's work on sponge helicondria. So this was conducted in March and is having a look at the impacts of microplastics with hydrocarbon contamination. This is also leading on to another collaboration where Joanne will be working with Petra Hashani and Althea Piper from St Abbs. They've submitted a grant where they can have a look at the microbiome changes within the sponges during these stressors. This is some work that Seb Hennigan's done. since we've all been locked up, we've not been able to do field courses, and that is something that we've had an active interest in over the years. So we've had to move to a digital platform. So this is the creation of story maps, which allows students to get involved with St Abbs and the local area without actually being there. As part of this, he has created a Google Street View where you can move around the coast. You can have a look at specific study sites, transects, and so on. And it's definitely the way of the future. If this ever happens again, we want to be prepared. So we really want to take these technological steps forward. We also have something underway, which is a Google Street View, effectively, of inside our facility. So if people are interested in collaborating and working with us, then that's something that they can use to have a look at the facility from the inside and hopefully help plan experiments. Finally, the last couple of slides I will touch on here. So being a marine station, we're obviously interested in linking up with other marine stations. So recently we've been working with the White Sea Biological Station in Russia. And we have an upcoming symposium on the 19th of May, where we're looking to create links, collaborations, and look for overlapping interests. So the details are here. You will find the details online. If you are interested in attending, then please do. It's a very interesting facility that they have over there. It's got a great history and a great program of research. And following on from that, at a later date, we will be setting up a World Congress of Marine Stations meeting. So this is going to bring together the Marine Biological Association, based down in England, the White Sea Biological Station, and along with Japanese, Chinese, and so on. Any marine station throughout the world who wants to become part of this network will be present. So again, details online, websites there. If you're interested, please do get in touch. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Kevin and Murray. So we've actually got opportunity for some questions and discussion now. So if anybody did want to ask questions to either Kevin or Murray, if you can write them in the chat box, and we can read them out. Or alternatively, if you want to open discussion points, then feel free to share your screen and microphone. Otherwise, I'll ask Murray, Kevin, if they we have a bit of time, if there's any other points that you wanted to share at the moment regarding.
I have a question here, Tim. Yeah, from Philippa. What types of impacts do you see on marine life from EM fields? This is really interesting. So we found a lot of different impacts. When we were having a look at crab and lobster, we found massive behavioral and physiological changes. So they follow a circadian rhythm with glucose and lactate in their blood, peaks and troughs. And after 24 hours of exposure to EMF, this flatlined. Behaviorally, they've got a strong attraction to the source of these electromagnetic fields. Now that comes at the cost of natural foraging behavior, breeding behavior potentially as well. When you start to have a look at the early life stages of these species, we exposed buried females to an electromagnetic field throughout the incubation period. And we had a higher number of deformities, lower hatching success rate, and an overall lower fitness of the larvae that did make it through. The larvae were also noticeably smaller. So the impacts, although we're just taking the first steps, and we really hope that more places do continue this line of work, the impacts could be endless. And it'll be really interesting, the next step that we are hoping to take with sharks and rays, to see if the effects that we've noticed in crustaceans are similar in that species.
And we have a question here from Ursula Dolman. Murray, perhaps you can elaborate on this. Ursula is asking, do we offer internships for graduates?
That's a great question. So at the moment, the closest is probably the volunteer scheme that Kevin and St Abbs run. So in the university, we haven't created a bespoke scheme on that. It's something that we're thinking about, but we want to work really closely with St Abbs because they have an active program there. So a lot of students, certainly in geosciences and elsewhere, have always been in touch around that. And it's been, of course, much slower thanks to the pandemic and all the restrictions. So Kevin, I don't know if you want to say anything about your scheme and how you see things going in the kind of coming months as we start perhaps to come out of the lockdown.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to say. In years gone by, we would just ask you to get in contact with any member of staff, and we would basically talk through what you're hoping to get out of it. We would explain the current research that we have going on, and because we have good relationships with a lot of different stakeholders, we would also try and get you to get involved in some of their projects. In terms of how it's going to play out this year, I'm not entirely sure. The facility itself is currently beginning to ease back to normality. So if you do have interest in this, I do suggest that you get in touch, and the minute that we get the okay, we'll implement that again.
And then maybe, Tim, if I can sort of jump in, one of the issues that we're really keen to do in the working group that Kevin and I sit on is obviously come up with schemes that make, bring all this together in the best way that we can. And that's really the purpose of that group. It's not just to sit and navel gaze, it's actually be very practical and hands-on. Because clearly the stations are limited, it's a finite space, so that's all got to be worked through and thought through, and we have to know how to cost things, and all of that's ongoing and nearly finished actually. The other thing I'd say that we have a really great chance on, so what Kevin and his team have done is take this work with EMF, electromagnetic field effects, to a really, really interesting point where it's possible to start developing standards and good practice around that. So we've had discussions with IOC, the International Oceanographic Commission, and their best practice people about this and other things. So we could think about best practices activities also from the university's expertise, or St Abbs team's expertise, bringing that together. EMF is one area. Another area might be, for instance, in marine environmental monitoring. How do we, probably we need to do a bit better than just go in and run transects and have diver surveys. There's an explosion of new techniques, technologies in big data acquisition that we could use to advise on best practice in ecological monitoring, for instance. So we're thinking in those spaces. If you look at what Horizon Europe is calling for in the next round of funding, it's amazing how many opportunities are there for a university like Edinburgh with a partner like St Abbs. So I really ask everyone, do think about the opportunities that are out there. They're really quite substantial. One final thing, we want to hear from you. Please be in touch. Today I got an alert from Masts. I'm a big fan of the research pool Masts. They have a scheme they just opened for £5,000 for people that are trying to build back from the COVID pandemic. Maybe you've got an experiment you couldn't deliver on. It got shut down, something happened. If you can do that with St Abbs, if there's something that you could do, if you can get that 5,000 or a component of the funding from Masts, that would be, those are the kinds of things we need to see happening, to see more of as we build up the activities. So we need that happening, and we need big projects going in. One I didn't mention, but we have put in one large grant. I mean, it's a multi-million euro grant to Horizon 2020 in the last phase, and it's all about ecosystem restoration. So this facility gives us a really special chance, and don't be too hidebound by the focal areas. We can think broadly, the engineering aspects of what we could do at St Abbs, monitoring aspects that we could do, things that we could do onshore as well as in the water. So it's that whole systems approach, I think, that's so important.
So many opportunities. We have a couple more questions here. I'm going to ask a few questions at once. So we have a question regarding, can we use the facilities to create shellfish families? Can we explain a little bit more about restoration aquaculture? And there was one more I was going to ask. Kevin, can you explain a little bit more about the Home Office license? What is allowed to be done at the facility? Also, perhaps, can we do disease work at the facility? Sorry, I'll throw them all at you at once.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so I mean, we had to set up, so historically we've worked on species that were not covered by the Home Office license, so we've worked on crustaceans. Because we are conducting new work on elasmobranchs, we also want to do some work on octopus and squid. We do have to have the establishment license. Now that effectively just means that we are able to do a lot of work on these species, subject to project and personal licenses. Now, we have arranged this establishment license through our link with Edinburgh University. So I've been told that we'd be able to expedite any projects that were going to fall under the license to be conducted at the Marine Station. In terms of disease work, we absolutely can. The biggest issue or hurdle, should I say, that we have is because we are a flow-through facility. Now, we do have the option to set up a recirculating system. We just have to take extra precautions. We have to be very wary, particularly if we're doing work on marine pathogens. Again, this will probably fall under certain licenses depending on the species that is being worked upon, but there's ways around it. Yeah, if we take the appropriate precautions, that's definitely something we can do. There was another question, Tim, sorry, that you had
Shellfish,
asked.
can we grow shellfish families?
Yeah, so because we're working, I mean, the facility space that we have although quite large, it is limited. So we can only spend a small portion of that looking at rearing animals. Now, we've obviously spent a lot of time trying to rear tricky animals, try and breed them and try and rear them to an adult phase, basically. But because we have this link with DR Collins, who are based in Eyemouth, I mean, that's a 10-minute drive down the road. And they have a lot more space, and they are keen to get involved and build on the links that we have. So in terms of creating shellfish families and histories, particularly for research, that is definitely something that we want to do. So if people are interested in that, please get in touch. And likewise, if I don't get a chance to answer any of these questions, go on the Marine Station website, send me an email. I've seen one about CT scanning as well. Absolutely, that is something that I would jump all over. So please do get in touch about that.
Great. And Murray's added a link to an article about restoration aquaculture in the bottom of the comments there as well. So maybe one more question then. We have a question here and from Geosciences, wondering if you have any research projects involving algae, macro and microalgae, and if so, who can we speak to at the institute or the station, sorry.
So one of our leading lights on microalgae is Sinead Collins. I don't think Sinead's running things currently, but Kevin, do you have anything currently at St Abbs on macro or microalgae?
No, we have done in the past. We had photobioreactors, biofences that we used, but we were typically just growing this as a foodstuff for larvae that we were growing. So we have the capacity to do so. We have the equipment required to do so, but it's not an active part of our research agenda just now.
And so that's one, please be in touch and get whoever sent that question in, thank you so much. It's actually an area we want to see grow, and Sinead's expertise in evolutionary biology, looking at how microorganisms and algae could be not just dealing with acclimating to change, but actually adapting to change and evolving how those pathways are going to proceed. That's going to be a really important front for us. And Sinead's also pulled together really good work for SCORE, Scientific Committee on Oceanic Research, had a working group on multiple stressor experimental design that can really feed into what we do at St Abbs. So a project like Kelsey Archer Barnhill's multi-stressor experiment, very much informed by that kind of understanding of all of the detailed statistical basis around replication, getting things right so you can actually get them published when you're done, that there's a lot of expertise in that. Final thing, Tim, we also are seeing a rapid growth now of seagrass research. So not just algae and macroalgae, but also the flowering plants of the sea, which are really important in a Scottish context and right around the world. Major blue carbon stores. Seth Henniger's involved in bids there, but we're seeing a lot of other people as well developing seagrass research, both in the university and in small NGOs that have formed around seagrass research.
That's brilliant. So I think we're kind of approaching the time now where we said we'd finish this seminar session. So just once again say a massive thank you to Murray and Kevin. There's clearly huge opportunities here, and it's really exciting to be involved at the very beginning when we're deciding how the station and the university are going to work together over the next few years, and we look forward to this relationship growing. So thanks again for the introductions, thanks for all the questions everybody and for the discussions, and we'll see you at the next aquaculture-ish seminar in about a month or so. So speak to you all soon. Bye bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.